Have you ever just, stopped and really thought about the words you're hearing right now? English. It feels completely normal, right? But the story of how it ended up as the world's go-to language is one of the most improbable, chaotic, and frankly, fascinating tales in all of human history. So let's get into it.
So check this out. Today, something like 1.5 billion people speak English. That's either as their first language or as a second one. That's nearly 1 out of every 5 people on the entire planet. It's the language of global business, of science, of aviation, and of course, the internet.
But here's the thing. It wasn't always this way. Not even close. So the real question is, how did this relatively minor language, spoken on a rainy little island off the coast of Europe, manage to pull off the biggest linguistic takeover ever? To get the answer, we have to go way, way back.
We're heading back to a time when English wasn't just different. It was basically unrecognizable. It was spoken by just a handful of tribes, and trust me, you wouldn't understand a word of it.
Okay, so picture it. It's around 450 AD. Tribes from what we now call Germany and Denmark, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, they sail over and settle in Britain. The language they bring with them is this jumble of West Germanic dialects. It's way more like German than the English we speak. Super complex and clunky. Take a look at this. Feather ure thu the art on hefom. Any ideas? Believe it or not, that's the beginning of the Lord's Prayer in Old English. It sounds completely alien, doesn't it? And yet, that is English. It really makes you wonder, how in the world did we go from that to the words I'm speaking right now? Well, the answer involves a whole lot of invasions, chaos, and some world-changing events. You see, English didn't just evolve peacefully. Oh no. It got completely remixed. First by Viking invaders who threw in words like sky and knife, and then came the big one, an invasion that changed absolutely everything. The year is 1066. William the Conqueror and his army of French-speaking Normans take over England. And for the next 300 years, French becomes the language of the elite. It's for government, for the courts, for fine dining. The common folk, the Anglo-Saxons, they kept speaking English. But now, the two languages started smashing into each other. And the result of that collision is just wild. I mean, look at our vocabulary today. Even though English is technically a Germanic language, a whopping 60% of our words come from French and Latin. It's like a linguistic Frankenstein's monster. It's got a Germanic skeleton, but it's wearing a fancy French and Latin suit. You can still see this class divide on your dinner plate today. The Anglo-Saxon farmer, out in the field, he raised the cow, the pig, and the sheep. But the French-speaking lord up in his castle, he ate beef from bœuf, pork from pork, and mutton from mouton. We literally still use both sets of words. It's history served up for dinner. So after hundreds of years of this linguistic mosh pit, English was a bit of a glorious mess. It was super flexible, sure, but it didn't really have rules or any kind of consistency. The next chapter in its story is all about bringing some order to that chaos. Basically, 3 huge things happened. First, the printing press shows up in 1476, and that forced printers to finally pick one spelling for a word and just stick with it. Then this massive, mysterious change in pronunciation called the Great Vowel Shift happened, which started making English sound a lot more like it does today. And finally, people started trying to tame the beast by writing dictionaries. But before the dictionary writers could lock everything down, one man came along and just went on an absolute word creation rampage. He personally supercharged the English language with more than 1,700 new words. And that man, of course, was William Shakespeare. I mean, think about this. Words like eyeball, gossip, lonely, assassination, they didn't really exist in common use before he just made them up for his plays. He took this new flexible English and just showed the entire world what it was capable of. Finally, in 1755, a guy named Samuel Johnson spent 9 years of his life putting together the first truly comprehensive English dictionary. It was this heroic effort to pin down the spellings and meanings of 40,000 words, and it gave the language the solid foundation it needed for its next big adventure.
Because once English was standardized, it was ready to go global. Its journey from just a national language to a worldwide phenomenon, well, that happened in a few very clear stages. The path to world domination was like a three-step process. First, the British Empire spread English to every single corner of the globe. Then, in the 20th century, the United States came along and cemented its power with its economy, with Hollywood, with pop music. And then came the final step, the Internet. Built on programming languages that all used English keywords, made it the default language for our digital lives. And today, the dominance is it's absolute. Just look at these numbers. Around 95% of all international science papers are published in English. It's the required language for every international pilot and air traffic controller. It makes up over 60% of all the content on the internet. It's basically become the planet's operating system.
So, that's how it happened. A crazy story of migration, invasion, class warfare, and technology. But it brings up a really interesting question. Why has English been so successful? What makes it so incredibly resilient?
Well, the secret is that its messy, chaotic history is actually its greatest strength. It has this incredible, unmatched willingness to just steal words from any language it bumps into. It has a massive vocabulary, which lets you be super precise. And compared to its ancestors, the grammar is actually pretty simple. And all of that, of course, was put on steroids by massive economic and cultural power. And that evolution, it's not over. In fact, it's speeding up. Get this. Experts estimate that a new word is officially added to the English language about every 2 hours. Words like selfie, Brexit, or AI just prove that it's still changing, still adapting, all the time. Which brings us to a final thought. This language has never, ever stood still. It's been remixed, reinvented, and reborn for over 1,500 years. So what do you think? What will this messy, beautiful, unstoppable global language look like and sound like in another 1,000 years from now?